En toen ontdekten ze plotseling dat die MI5 ook een hele hoop criminele activiteiten ontplooide en became een so-called whistleblower. Zij maken daar ook een boek over, die verscheen in 2005, Spies, Lies and Whistleblowers. En sindsdien is ze, nou ja, wat je kan noemen, activistisch bezig. Sinds 2012 is ze de Europese voorzitter van LEAP. En LEAP staat voor Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. Dat zijn bijvoorbeeld politieagenten, mensen van de geheime dienst, rechters, etc. die ook vinden dat het een hele drugsverbod een wassen neus is. Vandaag komt ze hier spreken. Mag ik een hartelijk welkom voor Annie Machon.
I got my whole life to smoke weed, but for now I know what the people need.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and hello Amsterdam. It's fantastic to be in the beating heart of sane drug policy. So I'm really pleased to be able to speak here and to discuss the work of law enforcement against prohibition. So I'm sure you're a bit suspicious that there is a law enforcement person here, but actually we are campaigning against prohibition globally. LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, is an organisation now of over 150,000 law enforcement professionals around the world, with a presence in 120 countries around the world. And we come from every aspect of law enforcement, both the police officers on the beat, to undercover cops, to lawyers, judges, prison governors, even the odd spy, like myself, and also drug czars. And what brings us all together is the knowledge, which is based on our professional experience, that the war on drugs has failed. And we know this because in the last 50 years, drugs are much more available on the street, they are cheaper, they are purer, and yet the authorities say they are winning the war on drugs. That does not make any sense whatsoever. Every single metric proves that the war on drugs is a failure, and prohibition of drugs, just as prohibition of alcohol in America in the 1920s, is an abject failure. And to carry on doing the same thing in the hope that we will get a different result is Einstein's definition of insanity. So why in law enforcement do we say that we need to end prohibition? As I said, all the metrics show the failure of the war on drugs, but we also look at the damage and the harm that has been carried out over the last 50 years in the name of trying to suppress what is essentially consensual adult behaviour. The choice to ingest what you choose to ingest into your own body. How can the police and the rest of law enforcement be expected to police moral behaviour? It's just wrong and it's counterproductive. People take drugs for a variety of reasons, usually for fun, recreation, and they have a bloody good time doing it. Some people do develop dependencies, but if they do, they need help. It will be a health issue. To arrest them, imprison them, and in some countries around the world, execute them for their adult consensual behaviour is a criminal act in itself. It has created harm in local communities, it has created harm and distrust between the communities and the law enforcement, and also it has unleashed the biggest crime wave the world has ever seen, both in the producer countries like Latin America and Central Asia, where the war on drugs and trying to eradicate drugs in those countries has produced endemic violence, militarised responses, and corruption of whole governments and police forces. In the transit countries, where we see whole countries becoming narco-states, particularly across northwest Africa at the moment, where we have a situation where states like Mali and Guinea-Bissau and Libya now as well have become the major transit points from Latin America into Europe. And these countries are collapsing into violence and anarchy. And of course, on the streets of Europe and America, the two key consumer areas of the world, we also see an abject failure of the war on drugs. As I said, the price has gone down, the purity's gone up, use has gone up. This is not a success. But the other aspect that LEAP is also concerned about is the crime wave aspect. It's great in Europe and it's great in America. We have a situation where at least some places are introducing harm reduction, so that those who choose to use are not penalised. but helped if necessary, and allowed to get on with their lives if they're harming nobody else. That is a big step forward. However, that does not eradicate the problem, which is the trade in illicit drugs. And this is now worth between $320 and $500 billion per year globally. And all that money is going into the hands of violent organised crime and also, of course, terrorist organisations. It is estimated by the American DEA that half the groups that are currently designated to be terrorist organisations around the world get most of their funding from the drugs trade. This is a ridiculous situation. By creating this drug black market, we are providing profits for terrorists. And yet we say we're fighting both the war on drugs and the war on terrorism. This is a perfect business model for certain people. And it also subverts the legality of our banks, because they launder the money. In fact, there was a very famous quote in 2009 from the head UN drugs czar, and he said in 2009, immediately after the financial crash, that the only thing that kept most major international banks liquid with cash was drug money. That is the scale of the problem. The only way we see in LEAP for us to end this global crime wave is to end prohibition. We call for the legalization, the regulation and the control of all drugs, not just cannabis. So thus we can take the profits out of the hands of the organised crime cartels and the terrorist groups around the world. This, of course, would be a win-win situation, because our governments could then tax the trade and protect those who choose to use. And in fact, of course, many of you will be aware that in America we now have 5 states which have fully legalized cannabis. And Colorado is the first state that is now putting in its tax returns, and simply the trade in cannabis is bringing in $70 million per year to that one state. And finally, it's estimated in the UK, if we were to legalise only cannabis tomorrow, we would garner £1.6 billion per year. 1.2 of those would be from tax, 170 million would be from freeing up money from the police, 155 million from the courts, and 135 million from the from the prisons. How can a bankrupt country like UK not afford to at least have a civilised debate about legalising cannabis? And if we're going to legalise cannabis, we need to think about legalising all illicit drugs, to take the profits and the motivation and the violence out of the hands of organised crime and terrorists. So please support LEAP. You can find our website at leap.cc. We bring a uniquely credible voice, I think, to the whole drug debate, because you don't expect a lot of police and lawyers and judges to be standing up and saying legalise the whole damned lot. So we hope to add that very powerful voice across Europe. I'm currently working as the European Director of LEAP, and we have many speakers across all our different countries who are very happy to add to this debate. So please support us. And finally, I'd just like to point out, I have hope, especially in many other countries in Europe, from places like Portugal to Switzerland to France to Belgium, about progress around the legalisation, or at least decriminalisation, of cannabis and perhaps other drugs. But what pains me is that the Netherlands, for so long in the vanguard, for so long the beacon of hope to most other countries in its enlightened approach to drug use, it seems to be going backwards. Now is the time to force your government to stand up, force your government to say, no, we are against the tide of history, and force your government to think about its citizens' health and protect them also from crime by thinking of legalising, regulating, control and potentially taxing all drugs in this country. Thank you very much.
Me, I got the whole night to smoke weed, but for now I know what the people need.
Say no to the hard drugs. Say yes to the indica. Green pleasure.